Premier League. Game number 1 ended in spectacular comeback fashion. Well, spectacular if you're never Clucky, tragic if you're Sky High. Clucky was down the entire game and then finds an awesome team fight where they take down everybody on the enemy team except for one lone resistor, push into the base, clear everything out, and bust the Nexus wide open before anybody can respawn to have a word about it. Now we're into game number 2. It's Spooky Midnight in the blue versus Syndicate in the red. Syndicate previously an undefeated team, before last week anyway, but last week they lost to White Lightning, showing that they are indeed just mortal men like the rest of us. We'll have to see if Spooky Midnight can continue bringing the pain train to Syndicate, or if they're going to show us why, once again, they're currently number 1. I'm Captain Flowers here in the casting desk, joined by Deck Club Ace again. Deck, tell me your thoughts on this one.
So, normally I would say it is very likely that Syndicate is going to win this game, but number 1, for the first time, they lost last week. They lost 2 games last week. Number 2, Spooky Midnight just apparently came off of a win of White Lightning, so apparently something is going right this week for them, and whether or not that means that they'll be competitive in this match remains to be seen. In the very least, I'm expecting them to put up a really rough fight for Syndicate.
And that's what I want to see. I want to see a close game. I want to see something interesting. And one thing I want to point out, Spooky Midnight is currently running a different player than they usually run in the top lane. Prismal is going to be their top laner today compared to their normal top laner of Instep. And the thing about Prismal's a challenger level player. Actual challenger tier in solo queue. So this guy, and I've seen him play a couple of times before, he's a lot of fun to watch because he does have a great understanding of the game. He's got fantastic mechanics. He's a lot of fun to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the table, and if he's that element that Spooky Midnight's been missing that can really send him over the top.
Well, hopefully it will be exactly what they need. Looking at the bans and the picks so far, almost the same bans as the last game we saw. We do see a little bit of a difference in the bans coming out from Spooky Midnight here, but otherwise, the bans are fairly similar.
Mateusz and Trebro going to be picking up Braum and Gragas immediately for Syndicate, getting a nice solid front line to build the rest of the draft on. Of course, Prismal taking the Echo. We saw him last game. We're going to see him here again. Prismal is a pretty devoted Echo player to my knowledge, so we're going to be able to see some plays from him this game. Bubbles 188 picking up that Trundle, and that makes me wonder because we've got Echo and Trundle on the same team, so somebody's not going into their usual lane this game.
Is it possible that we are seeing the return of the support Trundle? Because
Could be support Trundle or Jungle Echo? There's no way it's Jungle Echo. Jetrix doesn't play Jungle Echo. That's not Lee Sin. So what are they playing? What is the goal here? Is it mid lane Echo maybe? Is Bubbles packing that secret Echo pocket pick with full AP upper sleeve?
It's possible, I guess. Now, I will say, we have occasionally seen a Trundle pick bot lane, and against a fairly tanky lineup they've got so far, a Trundle bot lane wouldn't necessarily be the worst pick. Ooh, the Kennen lock-in. There's someone we don't see very much.
Kennen locked in, but what exactly are they going to do with him, I wonder? Usually we see him as a top laner. Sometimes in solo queue you see people play him as a mid laner. Not exactly sure, but he definitely brings some crazy team fight potential, and I've seen a lot of success on him recently, in solo queue at least, with people building that new, I wish I knew the name of the thing, but I honestly don't, the jetpack thing that makes you dash forward 3 inches and then throw fireballs everywhere. Kennen seemed to do fantastically with that item.
It's a Hextech Proto Belt.
Hextech Proto Belt, there's the name.
I don't remember all of them. I only remember that one because it's such a funny name, and when they first announced it, I was like, oh, this sounds like such a cool thing, the Hextech Proto Belt. You have, like, rockets on your belt, and you dash forward and you shoot them.
Yeah, it sounds like some kind of Ratchet and Clank device or something. I don't exactly know, but Riot introduced all those new items, and I've still got to put myself through the rings to learn the names and all that stuff. And just like I was saying, just like I said, Deck, there's the Lee Sin pick. That's what I'm expecting from Jetrix. That is what he's known for.
You are, and we do see the Anivia picked up, which means that this really is a support Trundle.
All right, we got support Trundle along with Anivia, which means we've got player-created terrain for days.
That's going to be really obnoxious for this team to deal with because Sure, they picked up the Zed last. They have the Lucian that can dash over the walls, and they have Gragas that can dash over the walls. But, Kennen can't. So, if Mateusz gets caught out by himself, he just kind of has to get abandoned, or they have to all dive over the terrain to get to him.
Now, Little Frosty locked in Zed. And Little Frosty is known for Zed. This is Little Frosty's champion. I'm really excited to see him playing at this game. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of scared for Bubbles. Playing an immobile mage up against a Zed player who knows the ins, outs, and arounds of that champion is going to be something that she's got to be very mindful of.
So, the thing about going against a Zed as a Nivea, though, because you already build a lot of defensive items, I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad. Bubbles does pick up that exhaust. That means that at least the first time Little Frosty gets his ultimate, she'll be fine. Assuming that the exhaust does not get blown really early. If it does get blown early, Little Frosty will in the very least be able to get the egg off really early. Now, whether or not Bubbles will be able to farm up enough to get maybe an early Roa, an early Zhonya's, something to deal with the Zed ultimate, because it does do a lot of damage, especially to a mage.
Now, this bot lane, we've got Lucian and Braum versus Ezreal and Trundle. How do you see this one playing out?
I don't know, because normally I would just give it straight up to the Lucian Braum lane, because it's such a strong lane. It can very easily proc Braum's passive, it can very easily do a lot of damage, they can move around a lot, they have high mobility because of the dash and Braum being able to jump to Lucian. But Trundle's really, really annoying against Lucian, because it lowers Lucian's damage and makes his auto attacks even worse when he uses his passive, since it does reduce damage. Now, whether or not that's going to be enough to deal with the fact that it's going to be a high CC lane with Braum, and he's melee, so he's not really going to be able to harass very well, remains to be seen. I think it's really going to come down to whether or not the junglers come down bot lane early. That will decide who is going to win this lane.
And that's what I want to see between these two junglers. Both are active in the early game. Both are champions and players at the same time that know how to be active in the early game and know how to do it right. Jetric's warding stats are actually insane in all the games he plays in Premier League. The dude places down so many wards on Lee Sin, and we've seen it in so many of his games where he just maintains such great vision control of his opponent's jungle that even if he can't get off a lot of great early ganks, he maintains so much control and so much knowledge on his opponent that they're usually not able to do that either.
Well, we'll have to see how that's going to work out for them. I'm really curious to see how this Mateusz versus Prismal top lane is going to go, because normally we see Mateusz just either trashing or not even really caring about his opponents, but I think a Challenger Echo could probably give him a run for his money, especially when he's playing Kennen.
Well, we'll have to see. Kennen is one of those champions that, like you mentioned, you haven't seen him in a while. I haven't seen him in a while outside of solo queue. And you can't really take solo queue as... You got to take solo queue with a grain of salt, because when people are playing against something they haven't seen in a while, especially a lane bully type champion like Kennen, he's bound to usually get out of control because, you know, that's the nature of the mode you're playing in. But in this competitive fives environment, we'll have to see what Mateusz is able to do with him. I'm excited to see it, especially with this Zed thrown into the mix that we don't get to see that often. So excuse me. Sorry about that one. Stick around, guys. We will be live just momentarily through the loading screen on Summoner's Rift for Spooky Midnight versus Syndicate. Keep it here with House Party 5v5.
Welcome back to Summoner's Rift, ladies and gentlemen. House Party 5v5 Premier League Week 6, Game 2 of the evening. Spooky Midnight on the blue side, Serpentis Syndicate on the red side. I am Deck Club Ace on color. Joining me is Captain Flowers on play-by-play. And look at this. Seeing Syndicate going for a nice clump straight towards the top
Five-man
side.
hustle. It's not going to be a line of scrimmage, Deck. This time we might actually see something happen at level 1.
Jetrix getting spotted out. Looks like he will get the ward down, though. Bubbles throwing out that stun. Not managing anybody. Nice try, though.
They're still moving in. They're not deterred. These guys are going to get their objective. Wards being placed down, not actually looking for any kind of a pick. They just want the knowledge, knowing what's going to happen with lane swaps, knowing what's going to happen with jungle starts. That little bit of extra information can go a long way in the early game.
And it is important because in terms of a lane swap, Kennen can do okay in a lane swap, but he's not going to do that great. Sure, he doesn't have to worry about mana, but he's also relatively squishy, and he wants to be able to bully his opponent. So you want to know 100% that you're going to be up against somebody that you can bully, and you're not really going to be able to bully a Trundle Ezreal lane.
Exactly. Kind of negates one of the biggest bonuses to picking Kennen if you don't really get to utilize that early game power.
Oh, no,
Now,
look
we
at
will
this, though.
see Mateusz in the top lane still, and Intercourse and Collateral are here, so we will be seeing that lane swap scenario come out.
Now, this is really important because the lane swap scenario happened, and they went away that wasn't warded. So there's no way that Syndicate
They're
can see
scared
this
away from
coming.
the Krugs as well. They aren't able to take the Krugs properly. Man, this is a slow start for Treebro. He used his smite on it, too.
Well, at least he gets the stun. He doesn't get the kill, but he does get the stun, which will make it a little bit easier for him to get one of these other camps. His bot side also, while they were doing that, still managed to get the Gromp, which means the Gromp isn't even available for him to go get it. We see Mateusz actually teleports to bot lane to try and get this tower down to get something out of this.
They just want to take it down as fast as possible. Very well played from Spooky Midnight, realizing their opponents were going for that early game knowledge and walking around it, avoiding it, and still catching them by surprise.
Looks like we do still have the double jungle coming out from Prismal and Jetrix. They will be going straight for the red side. They're going to get that red. Little Frosty getting stunned up there with that little bit of a frost ball, but not really going to take much else from it. Already, the bot side turret is at half health, so hopefully they will be able to get something out of this. This is not a position that you want to be in. You want to be able to split up a little bit of that XP onto your top laner. You want to be able to give the advantage over to your bot lane, but unfortunately, they just couldn't do that.
Unfortunately, indeed, Bubbles and Frosty 1v1, and here in the mid lane, Little Frosty finding himself that level 3. Thunderlords plus Shurikens hurts pretty damn bad. Bubbles going to learn that one the hard way, having to be real careful now.
I'm actually kind of curious what Bubbles was doing there. She walked into melee range with a Zed to try and harass him.
A little bit of a questionable decision, but hey, we all make them every now and again.
I almost think it was to try and get a point blank.
At the time, when
Oh,
she
hang
originally
on.
moved up, she was level 3 compared to the level 2 of Little Frosty. Little Frosty ticked level 3 right as Bubbles moved up, and by then it was already too late.
So I just want to draw some attention to this because I just saw with what happened for Spooky Midnight. They all backed off except for Prismal and gave Prismal the full local gold of killing the tower.
That's one way to make sure he doesn't fall too far behind. As Syndicate finds their way onto Dragon number 1, they're going to kill this guy before the 4-minute mark even ticks over, and that's a very early objective for them.
Means a potential of 5 dragons if they get killed off quickly enough. And it may be this game, Syndicate may actually need that lead of having that objective. The
There
next
could be
dragon that
6
spawns.
dragons this game, Deck.
If they kill them on time, it'll be 6.
If they kill them on time, it'll be 6.
I don't think I've ever actually seen 6 dragons spawn.
Most I've ever seen is 5. I've seen 5. Usually you get 3 or 4, but 6 is going to be a whole new ball game.
Oh man, and the next dragon's gonna be another Ocean Drake, which for this team, Ocean Drake isn't really that useful. They have 2 energy users, so it's not gonna be that great. But at the same time, getting those extra dragons down could potentially mean that they could get a lot of buffs out of that. And when they get the Elder Drake, if they kill the Elder Drake, that's gonna be huge for them.
If that's over a 300 true damage burn, because it's 45 plus another 45 for every dragon buff. So that's 315 with 6 dragon buffs as true damage burn.
Well, here's hoping we get to at least see all 6 dragons spawn. Not sure if it'll
I'd
go
like
down
to
that
see
fast. It would be a treat. I almost never get to see 5 Dragon Spawn, let alone see 6. Promise. Walking straight into the Lee Sin, but feeling no fear, just going straight for it, no problem.
Look at the farm comparison between these top laners right now. 25 to 3.
See, for a second I thought you were gonna say the mid lane. It's like, oh, it's 18 to 32. Yeah, that's kind of expected. Anivia into Zed, but a 25-26 lead to 3, a little bit less
painful. Now, of course,
Kennen's
Kennen's gonna catch up a little bit. He's got a big juicy wave there to farm under the turret, but he's not gonna catch all the way up to the 26 of his opponent. Little Frosty continuing to make Bubbles' life absolutely miserable as he almost doubles her CS early on. Anivia's not going to really have much presence in this lane until she ticks level 6. Alex and Theo and Promise playing very aggressively as they're wont to do. Jetric's going to be caught out. Little Frosty putting the pain down a little bit more. Will take him. One more Shuriken will find this kill. Little Frosty doesn't even need it. He's got the Shadow into the auto attack, and Syndicate finds first blood.
That was actually really good from Little Frosty because he didn't even want to risk missing the Shuriken. He just immediately went in for the dash, said, all right, I'm in range to auto attack you, you're out of wards, you can't dash to anything, and I know that Bubbles isn't nearby, so 100% you're dead. Now,
yeah, easy kill.
Zed having a kill when he's already ahead in lane is not something that you want to be up against, especially when you're playing an immobile squishy mage.
Yeah, look at that. Just the Shadow under the turret. A little bit more damage from the Shurikens. Bubbles' life is going to go from difficult to even more difficult as Little Frosty continues to play this well throughout the game. Promise going to take a little bit of damage. Collateral drop in the pillar, but he doesn't get a lot of success from it. Alex and Theo doing a good job of frontlining for that AD carry, making it so they can win these trades. Prismal forcing the trade onto Mateusz at the same time. And Kennen's not having that early game that he wanted to have when he locked in that champion.
Bubbles being forced to back now, completely out of mana. Jester's clearing out some wards in his jungle. Prismal, on the other hand, getting everything that he wants. He does have a very, very slight lead in the XP, and he is going to jump straight onto Mateusz for this trade, once again winning the trade with relative ease.
Even though he didn't hit the back end of Time Winder, only came out with the front part of the damage, but he still wins the trade.
A lot of that just comes down to how much damage he can do having this Dark Seal plus a Doran's Ring. That's not really a position that you want to be in. Uh-oh.
Oh, Mateusz forced to use the flash to survive Prismal's initiation. Prismal taking advantage of the fact that he's got level 6 versus level 5, and Mateusz is forced to respect.
He does have to... he's not going to back. It looks like he is actually going to hang around, and that might be a bad idea. Jetrix is actually nearby, and he has no wards to know that this is happening.
And no flash to get himself out of trouble once trouble rears its head. Big minion wave heading towards the turret. Mateusz will not want to back up for this. He can't afford to lose it, but he's going to lose it anyway. Prismal looking for the dive. Here they go. The damage comes down. Sonic wave. Resonating strike. Goodbye, Mateusz. Goodbye what looks like 2.5 waves of experience and gold. Just like that, Kennen is pretty much taken out of this game.
Frosty taking a little bit of damage here, but to her credit, Bubbles still has not lost that rebirth, so it is still available.
Man, that was a vicious gank. That was just exactly what you want to see from Spooky Midnight. Not only do you find the kill, you deprive him of all that EXP, you take down the turret. Mateusz in such a rough way right now. Serpentis Syndicate will at least find themselves that Rift Herald to make up for it, but what are they going to do with it? They've got it on the jungler, so it won't be on Mateusz. I don't know. It's a small consolation prize right now. Bubbles trying to steal away that blue buff with the help of Jetrix.
Needs to be careful of where she's walking, though. She just walked past a pink ward, so...
Can you not
Frosty.
see the blue buff animation on Bubbles?
I cannot.
Yeah,
That's
I was
really
curious
weird.
about that because I thought that it looked like originally Jetrix might have taken it on accident because I didn't see that animation under Bubbles, but apparently that Anivia skin will not show blue buff.
Overpowered, needs a nerf, obviously.
OP, exactly.
I guess that also means that it's good for Little Frosty because that means he gets a nice surprise whenever he kills
Yeah,
Bubbles.
I wonder how she's sustaining and constantly casting these spells and there's nothing I can do to make her stop. Prismal in a 1v1 versus Treebro. Explosive cast, not going to connect onto anything. Prismal working his way back towards the top side. Alex and Theo plus Promise putting some pain down onto the turret. Prismal jumping in, able to find some nice damage onto Alex, having to back himself away now. Promise has help nearby, and here goes Little Frosty looking to make the dive onto Bubbles. Already trying to scramble that egg. Finds the passive, won't be able to find any more. Promise wants to finish him off, though. Can he do it? Bubbles with the flash away. Winter's Bite does not connect. And that's Syndicate finding their second turret of the game. Meanwhile, Spooky Midnight is not willing to let Syndicate pile up those dragons. They're going to find Ocean Drake number 2.
Prismal interrupting that recall from Little Frosty. That's going to be really useful. It's going to give Bubbles a little bit more time to get some more farm in mid. Hopefully that'll be enough. Seeing though, very nice play from Spooky Midnight. They did lose the top tower, but it was lost anyway. There's no way that they were going to save that from 4 people. And they gave it up for a dragon and managed to not lose anyone. That's the important factor here. Prismal managed to keep Little Frosty away from killing Bubbles, and because of the egg, Bubbles survived and was able to survive a little bit longer afterwards.
Bubbles, despite her rough early game so far, still has no deaths, sitting on 0-0 and 0, and in a matchup that's that far stacked against you, you're pretty happy with that. Still down almost 30 CS though, still definitely an uphill battle, but when we look at the gold overall, it's slightly favoring Spooky Midnight because of the fact that they have that turret advantage. And because of the fact that Mateusz is just still incredibly far behind.
That's true. Mateusz actually has,
He's got
Prismal
150 more gold than his Braum.
Yeah, so Prismal is actually 1 kill away from having double Mateusz's gold.
Trebro in a little bit of a precarious situation in his own jungle. Collateral and Jetrix trying to set up some kind of a trap, but the Fat Man is oddly agile. Gets himself out of it. Jetrix still hanging around. Sonic Wave will not follow the Resonating Strike. Little Frosty's got the Ghost Blade, and he's looking to go deep onto Collateral. Can he actually find something here? That's going to be the question. Good kick to disengage from Jetrix, and Frosty won't find anything.
That does, however, use both the Flash on Collateral and Dragon's Rage from Jetrix. Not really cooldowns that you want to give up, but at the same time, you don't really want to get kills to Zed either, so...
Yeah, you'd rather not die. If it comes down to using the Flash and using the Dragon's Rage, or finding yourself with a gray screen for the next 20 seconds, you'd rather Flash.
Promise. Clearing out this minion wave. Looks like their next target is this mid lane turret. Going really hard for it. One thing I want to say, we do see the extra tower from Spooky Midnight that they picked up bot side. That's going to be really strong for them. That means that it's a lot easier for them to contest these dragons, that at this point Syndicate kind of needs to give them the lead they need to just turn the fights around every time.
Spooky advantage continues growing bit by little bit, up to 300 gold now compared to their opponents. And again, a lot of that is the top laner comparison. Jungle's pretty much even, mid lane's going the way of Zed, bottom lane's pretty much even. It's all about that top lane comparison right now.
Talk about situations you don't want to be in. Being behind as Kennen, that is a very sad situation. He does have his Hextech Proto Belt, but Prismal's already finished Aroa, so definitely,
well, the nice part is,
watch out.
Even though he's behind, he's not behind on a champion. Like, if you're behind on top lane Trundle or something like that, you don't really do anything. You walk up, you try to subjugate the tank, and then you kind of just die. But if you're Kennen, you've still got the ability to make that huge AoE playmaker stun. Even if your damage isn't actually connecting for anything other than little slivers of people's health bars, the AoE stun on its own can be enough to win a fight.
That's right, and it doesn't do that much damage right now, but it will do enough to, in the very least, turn a fight around. Now, the next dragon that spawns will be in about 3 or 4 minutes here. It's going to be a Cloud Drake. Ooh, Prismal going straight onto Little Frosty.
He's got to be careful, though.
Yeah,
Frosty's got Ghost Blade and Deathmark.
He didn't quite proc that third strike to win the trade, and even if he did, it's still really difficult to do against against a Zed.
Spooky wants to try to save this one, but they won't succeed in doing so. Unbreakable from Alex means that the stun will not connect from Bubbles, and just like that, Syndicate's going to tie up that turret count.
Now, I just want to say, this is actually really brilliant from Syndicate. They actually moved Zed to bot lane, and because Little Frosty is quite a bit ahead in terms of the rest of the team, it forces Prismal to go deal with him, because Prismal's the only one that can deal with him by himself right now.
22.0 to 22.3 thousand gold. We're just seeing these very slight advantages go back and forth and teeter-totter between these two squads. Dragon number 3 up in about 100 seconds. Probably going to be a point of contention. Hopefully going to be a point of contention. 15 minutes in and a game only having 2 kills means the violence is just waiting and ticking down to explode.
Here's the thing, though. The next dragon is a Cloud Dragon, so...
Oh, man, of course, right when I want to see some action, it spawns the most useless one.
Exactly, and it's not like last game where we had a lot of poking that could come out, and the extra out-of-combat movement speed would be very useful for dodging. There's not very much of that in this game. You're going to be dodging
dead
like...
Drake.
You're dodging shurikens and mystic shots. That's about it.
Yeah, the Cloud Drake isn't really going to be much more than useless this game. I mean, if you could pile up 3 of them, maybe it would allow you some extra engage potential, but that's about it. I don't really see him having a massive impact. An extra stack of burn. Yeah, that's probably the most use you're going to get out of him. He's going to make the burn better once we get the Elder Drake.
Burn, baby,
now
burn,
the fight between
Frosty.
Little Frosty and Prismal. The stun won't work. Prismal's in some pain. Little Frosty looking to force the fight. Chrono Break already been used. Little Frosty, a little bit more damage, needs to find it. Prismal might be able to turn this one around, and Frosty's got him.
Prismal was just waiting on those cooldowns, trying to proc that, but unfortunately could not get it. Little Frosty
Collateral with the subjugate into the ignite. Frosty trying to stick around a little bit too long. He's going to be caught out, but he's already found his kill. It's just a 1-for-1 at the end of the day, and a lot of resources expended by Spooky Midnight's side to make it so. Little Frosty's got to be pretty content with how that turned out.
It's a 1-for-1, and a 1-for-1 on SZ is a lot better.
Trebro trying to catch somebody out. Jetrix going to almost be knocked away. A very nice flash as the cask is in the air to get himself to safety. Bubbles working her way towards this fight right next to Intercourse. Both these carries ready to fight. Bubbles does have exhaust should someone try to make the dive on top of her. Alex and Theo going to have that Sonic Wave, Resonating Strike, a little bit more damage onto him. Glacial Fissure right before he dies, but he's picked off for free. Spooky Midnight's got 5 men here in the river, and they're looking to take the Cloud Drake down.
May as well get it off the map while they have the opportunity to, and there's not really much that Syndicate can do about this. Collateral are going to take a little bit of damage from that cannon, but let's see. The next dragon is going to be the Infernal Dragon, Fire Dragon in the house. Definitely one that they want to grab both teams.
It's going to be forced to fight over.
And that's the situation that you want to be in. You want to force Zed to not be allowed to split push at this point. He's so far ahead that he can fight. We've already seen he beat Prismal 1v1, and Prismal has been consistently beating everyone else he goes up against. So at this point, you don't want him to be allowed to split push. You want to force him to come fight areas, and Fire Drake is exactly one that you can force him to fight at.
Here we go, 1v1 in the bottom lane. Once more, Prismal doubling back to tag his shield. Little Frosty walking himself away, doesn't want anything to do with the 2v1, but Collateral's saying, I don't care if you want anything to do with it, it's going to happen one way or the other. Frosty trying to get himself away, Shurikens come through, but not enough damage to bring Prismal down. Collateral flashing forward, he's got the jump for the kill.
Some people might say that that was a little bit of a waste on a support Trundle, but at the same time, it meant that Prismal didn't have to risk dying to Little Frosty, and he doesn't have to back yet. He can go for another wave, and really, a Trundle without a flash isn't really that big of a deal.
Right. As support Trundle, your job in team fights is mostly just throw down those pillars, use your bite to debilitate people's attack damage, and try to peel. Make the tank weak. The flash isn't really going to be a big thing because, you know, you're not a top lane Trundle. Flashing into biting somebody isn't usually going to be enough to kill him. Right there it was, and so he pulled the trigger.
Right, you are, and from that he manages to get a little bit more out of it. He does have a completed Eye of the Equinox and picked up another Vision Ward. He's got a little bit of gold sitting on himself, but it's not enough to actually buy anything, so overall, still think it was worth it for him to get the kill. He does manage to put himself ahead of gold on Alex and Theo. Oh, never mind.
Speaking of gold, let's take a look across the board, mostly at the solo lanes. Those are the ones I care about because those were the two biggest differences early on in the game. We're seeing the Zed versus Anivia advantage sitting at about 700 right now, while the Echo versus Kennen advantage is all the way up to 1600.
So, at this point, I almost think it would be easier to compare Bubbles and Mateusz, because Bubbles and Mateusz are basically in the same situation.
They're the two that are behind. Right.
Yeah, they're both in the same situation, and we see Prismal is barely ahead of Little Frosty, has a little bit more than 1 kill's worth of gold over him. And meanwhile, Bubbles has almost 2 kills worth of gold over Mateusz because of that that extra dragon they got and because of a little bit of extra stuff that they've gotten from the farm. So just looking at the farm, that's 40 CS more in terms of their losses.
Frosty trying to get himself away from Prismal, but a beautiful chrono break. That's going to take him down instantly. Alex and Theo trying to walk himself away, but he's frozen in between 2 ice walls. Beautiful placement from Spooky Midnight, forcing Alex's flash, and Spooky's looking like a real team tonight, Deck.
Talk about quite a match to watch. Huge props to Prismal. I actually didn't even expect him to flank that way, but he came right up behind and went straight for Little Frosty, saying, okay, you know what, you're the threat. I'm going straight for you.
Sonic Wave on to Promise. Resonating Strike will not be taken. Mateusz here in the middle, and this is what I'm talking about. The AoE stun that can turn it all around. 2 kills for Syndicate. What else can they find? Bubble's going to soak some turret shots. Not enough to threaten her life, but Spooky overstays a little bit too hard. That team play that I just mentioned a couple seconds ago, they thought they had it. They thought they had the potential to maybe make those really, really flexing muscles types of plays, but their opponents punish it. Spooky's always got to be aware that even if you're ahead, you can still end up committing some pretty egregious errors. Jetrix backing himself away in time, but Syndicate has almost tied the game up yet again.
I find it interesting that Prismal unfortunately got caught out without his Chrono Break because he just used it to kill Little Frosty. I think he was playing a little bit more aggressive than he probably should have been, underestimating the potential of the slicing mails from stun, and he paid for it. He died. But overall, not much else going over. That was 1 kill onto Little Frosty for, what, 2 kills? Both Prismal and Collateral dying?
Something along those lines. 33.5 to almost 33,000 gold, though. The distance between these two teams becomes smaller and smaller as we go on. Dragon live in 90 seconds. Like you mentioned before, it is indeed an Infernal Drake, so he's going to be something worth fighting over. And now's when we want to see the teams work their way towards that area, start setting up vision and trying to control the whole space so that once the fight actually comes, they're ready to take it.
Dragon will be spawning in 1 minute here. Little Frosty kind of poking his nose out. Anybody to respond to it. Everybody's just kind of backing off, getting ready for the guaranteed fight. This is going to be a fight, 100%, because unless both top and mid can be pushed in such a way to where Spooky Midnight can decide, okay, it's gonna suck, we'll lose the Fire Drake, but we'll gain 2 towers, then so be it. But I don't think that's gonna be the case. They want this dragon.
We'll have to see if they're able to maintain control. Right now, a ton of Syndicate wards down there around that Dragon Pit means they're invested in fighting for this. Spooky Midnight's going to have to find some way to continue working their team fight magic like they have been so far. They've been very coordinated. They've been a mean, lean fighting machine, except for that last fight where they overstayed a little bit too hard, but everybody makes a mistake now and then. Jetrix overextended in enemy territory. If they can catch him out, that's their green light. That's their ticket to making this fight work in the Dragon Pit. Collateral's going to be caught now. He's dead instantly. Promise taking the kill credit, tying the game up 5-5, and now they've got a man advantage going towards this dragon.
And a deficit of only about 500 gold. That is not a position that you want to be in whenever you are barely leading because of your ability to control towers and having better farm.
Now the fight breaking out once more. Tree Bro, Alex, and Theo, neither one able to really force it. True Shot Barrage comes out from Intercourse, finding slight damage onto his opponents. As Syndicate heads over towards the Dragon Pit, and Spooky Midnight is still not willing to let this one go. Prismal jumping in. Parallel Convergence lands not onto anyone really. Little Frosty dodging away from some spells, looking to find the kill into Intercourse. A little bit more, should be able to take it. Flashing forward, almost gets him, but Intercourse takes down that enemy mid laner. Prismal's going to be brought low. He falls as well. Tree Bro dead. Frosty dead. Prismal dead. Spooky Midnight's found the advantage so far, but Jetrix dives a little bit too deep. Glacial Fissure comes out trying to disengage the fight, but Collateral's here, and he needs to place down one of those big, juicy blue popsicles. Now Spooky Midnight has the drop on the dragon. They've got positioning, but with your AD carry and your jungler low, you don't want to go any further, at least for now. Collateral's going to lead the charge away, Syndicate backs away, and nobody takes the drag.
Looks like they're instead opting to get some pressure onto this mid lane turret, which, under the circumstances, that's definitely a good idea, because at this point, Alex and Theo and Mateusz are really low. They can't do too much to defend it, and Promise can't defend it by himself.
Alex and Theo taking a lot of damage. Subjugate plus Ignite going to be used on him, and he likely is going to die from that DOT. Alex and Theo still ticking. He'll live. Somehow, I thought for sure he was dead on that one.
That extra armor and magic resist you get from Stand Behind Me, it's only a little bit, but...
Tree Bro tries to dash himself over the wall. The Icicle says no. And now Spooky Midnight's in a really nice spot. They got 5 versus 4. They might be able to collapse on the dragon. We'll have to see exactly what they want to do so far. Heading towards the top half of the map instead.
This Ocean Drake actually paying off for them at this point, because now Jetrix was almost dead. Now he's back at half health. He's returning to almost full health slowly but surely. Each tick is a little more. Like they're gonna go straight for the Baron. They haven't been spotted at all. This is risky, but at the same time,
it's risky, but it could pay off big. There's a massive wave in the bottom lane as well that Syndicate's got to respect. Treebro's still down there. Alex and Theo over the wall. Now they know, but it's going to be too little, too late. Blue team, Spooky Midnight finds Baron Nashor not even 25 minutes into this game.
that was such a sneaky Baron. They tried to bait a bush gank, and nobody was there. They noticed that the rest of the team seemed to think they were still mid, and they just go for it. They realize there's no vision. There's no way they know we're here because they're not coming to stop us. So they managed to get that away. They do lose the Fire Drake, so they need to get as many advantages from this Baron buff as they can to pay for the fact that they just lost an extra bonus to AD and AP.
We're still looking at a pretty close game, but a game that's getting further and further towards the control of Spooky Midnight. 3,500 gold, even more than that, actually. I'm rounding down in this case, for these guys as they continue to show that they are indeed a powerhouse of a team. Promise and Alex and Theo grabbing that red buff for Promise. And Syndicate at this point needs another one of those big fights where Spooky Midnight overestimates themselves a little bit, and Mateusz is able to collapse and punish using the power of the Cannon Ultimate.
Right, you are, and they recognize where the push is going to be. They're moving most of the people up towards top side. We do see Little Frosty is mid lane defending, but at the same time, he's only defending against a relatively small wave. They need to be really careful. He is going to be coming up, but this is the quintessential time where they need to be careful. There will be an engage here soon. There's the wall.
There's the wall. Spooky Midnight still looking to find whatever little bit chips of damage they can onto this turret. Syndicate still trying to defend. No flash available on Mateusz. Treebro still might be able to engage if he finds the opportunity to land one of those really good casks. But other than that, Syndicate's just trying to clear waves and farm it up right now. Their opponents still have Baron.
Prismal is actually pushing mid lane with a massive wave that is built up with a cannon minion, and he's managed to take down this tower possibly.
He's going deep onto Frosty. He doesn't even care. Little Frosty's having to juke himself away, trying to find the kill into Intercourse. Won't succeed in doing so, and just like that, the Zed is dead. And they're looking for inhibitor number one. They found it. No need to look when it's right there in front of your eyes. Prismal walking himself away. Spooky Midnight's feeling good.
Right, you are. Getting that extra tower. That was so sneaky from Spooky Midnight. They were obviously trying to pressure for this topside turret, and it gave them just enough time to get Prismal towards mid lane, get that nice wave building, and take down both the tower and the inhibitor and Little Frosty just for that extra frosting on top.
6K gold lead, almost, for Spooky Midnight. Man, these guys are looking strong today. This is a middle-of-the-pack team. This is a team that, if you look at the power rankings and things like that posted on the House Party 5v5 subreddit, now and in previous times, Spooky Midnight has always been rated middle-of-the-pack or sometimes even lower. And now they're standing toe-to-toe with Syndicate, easily the #1 team in the league, and they're beating them. Spooky Midnight is showing some real muscle in this game, and they're showing some brains along with it, constantly outplaying their opponents, finding better macro-level play, better rotations, and punishing Syndicate when they make mistakes.
Got enough brain here, you think Tin Man should hit him up?
I think so. I think that would be a safe bet.
One thing I want to say, though, a lot of people might think that it's Prismal here, Prismal being their challenger player, obviously their strongest player in terms of his actual ranking, but the rest of the team is also doing really well. They're meshing all together. Bubbles, despite being in a difficult matchup and being behind, still has not died. She's managed to survive against a Zed who has gotten at least a couple of kills to try and get himself ahead. He still hasn't managed to break that egg. Now,
and look at the Zed now, though. Look at his farm. 20 lower than Bubbles, and he's got 5 deaths.
He just keeps trying to go in for those kills and just not getting them. We do see, once again, Prismal going for the topside split push. They're going to send at least 2 people to try and deal with him this time, possibly more. I don't know if they can commit that much. They have to defend mid lane, and bot lane is currently being sieged.
And look at Prismal's Echo build. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said that Echo players are really getting away from that 5 tank items type of thing. Prismal's going for a very damage-heavy bruiser style of Echo with Rod of Ages and Zhonya's Hourglass, those quintessential AP bruiser items, and then a Lich Bane thrown in there. That's why he hurts so much when he jumps in on top of somebody. Like, look at Mateusz. Look at the damage he suffered right there. Half his health. Chrono Break comes back, and Mateusz is dead. Prisma with an outplay. That right there is what Challenger Echo looks like.
Right you are. Just the Chrono Break managing to do about 700 damage on its own. Collateral getting knocked back over the wall.
Trebo trying to force the fight that Syndicate's been wanting all along. Jetrix wants to kick somebody into the fight, and he's found Trebo. They're going to find the fat man real easy, walking himself away, but not away enough. Trebo's going to fall. Bubbles takes the kill. Prismal has promise. Collateral walking himself away from the turret's wrath. Prismal down to just a sliver of HP. Collateral singing the same song as Spooky Midnight finds inhibitor number 2 in the bottom lane, and they're pushing on towards the Syndicate Nexus.
They have to watch out, though. Little Frosty is spawning. Prismal doesn't quite have the Chrono Break yet, so that could be a
Nexus
kill.
turret's already down. I don't know if Syndicate's able to hold this one. Collateral's brought low. Little Frosty tries to go in, pops the death mark, grabs the kill, but he's killed immediately in response. And ladies and gentlemen, Spooky Midnight takes down Syndicate in just over 30 minutes.
Well played from Spooky Midnight. They came out really hard. I thought they were going to give them a fight. I didn't think that they were going to be the ones dictating the fights for most of the game. Sure, there were a couple of moments where we saw Little Frosty getting a nice kill. We saw a little bit of a mess up bot lane for Prismal thinking he could fight Little Frosty and missing